Welcome to another episode of the Unprofessional Parenting Podcast. My name's Matt.
And I'm Lainey.
And we're back with another episode. And I know you tighten up every time I do an introduction, like what is Matt going to say next time? But I think that intro was very good. We're going to keep that one.
Okay, great.
We've taken a couple of weeks off from this program due to a few different things. What was going on in our lives the past 3 weeks that we haven't dropped an episode?
Yeah, here's what's been going on in our lives. I took our son to...
Wait, back up before that. There's 1 week that we missed before that. Oh, hello, Paisley.
When I was with my mom?
No, before that.
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
We missed 3 weeks.
Oh, when we were on spring break.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We went on vacation with our family.
We did. It was fantastic. We went on spring break vacation.
Where did we go?
We went to, do you not remember?
I was setting you up so you could tell the people where we went.
We went to Blue Ridge, Georgia.
That's what good hosts do. Yes, we did go to Blue Ridge, Georgia. It was actually really fun.
It's never not fun.
Here's true.
The thing. Our family vacations are never not fun.
That's very true.
That is the most thriving our children do, is when we get away from the house, get away from social media and the world. Well, they don't have social media.
Get away from the routines of
their
life.
friends,
Yeah.
like their peers. Is
social influences.
That's what I was, not social media, but like their social circles.
Right.
Just like disconnect them.
Yeah.
Isolate us as a family.
It's really nice.
And they thrive.
not know anybody in the entire town. That's also a really good thing too, right?
I mean, but kind of weird. Our middle child did know someone in that town.
Very strange. Very strange. And honestly, I ran into somebody on a trail that I was like, oh, we might have known each other across paths at some point, but they were wearing a shirt from a church up the street. So I was like, oh.
She knows
that's the same family.
Daughter of the guy that we ran into.
The same family.
Yeah. So we're on a hike. I mean, middle of the mountains, right? You see someone with a shirt from a local church here. And so, of course, you being an extrovert.
That's what I do.
Oh, man, this is a whole story because I was off trail.
Yeah, you were gone. You were using the bathroom.
I was off trail.
Yeah.
For purposes that only the woods will know.
Natural things.
And here I come back on trail, and I'm like, great.
Matt's talking
to somebody.
Right.
On the trail as I'm coming back.
Perfect timing. It could not have been better, but I recognized him, and that was the family that our middle child knew somebody.
Yes, so our middle child is classmates with that family's daughter.
Just
so random.
Yeah, so crazy.
Yeah.
Not as random as the fact, and we're digressing so much here, but the time that we were in Rome on vacation and you ran into somebody that you knew in a foreign city. Insane.
From college.
Insane. We don't have to go into that. It's crazy.
You're right. They don't care.
Yeah, so we were on vacation in Blue Ridge, and it was just such a good time, honestly, to get away with our family and connect as a family and hang out as a family. Yeah. I think one of my favorite things was my son wanted me to go Bigfoot hunting with him. He's just begging me the whole week, go Bigfoot hunting with me. I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, because he legitimately believes in Bigfoot, which, I mean...
He's 9.
No, I mean...
There might be. You never know.
I'm undecided in my beliefs about that, but he's all in that Bigfoot exists and he needed to go find
Right,
him.
So we went off in the woods, and there was a guy who had a lost dog in a situation that was just really sad. We saw the dog, and then it ran away from us, and so my son looked up at me. This is one of the greatest moments of the whole trip. He looked up at me and he's like, Matt, I think the more important thing that we do here now is look for the dog instead of look for Bigfoot. And I just had so much pride in that moment. I'm like, yes, that is it right there, son. Yeah. Let's do that. They ended up finding the dog, so that was a good thing. But vacation was good. And then the week after, you were with your mom at an event for foster care and adoptive ministries, right?
Yes, we went to a One More Child brunch, like women's brunch thing. One More Child, fantastic. Nationwide global organization that cares for children and especially foster children. They have phenomenal programs.
So you went to a brunch there?
Yeah.
Just like a learning brunch / fundraiser?
It was like a fundraiser, you know. So they have cute flowers on the table and nice speakers and...
It's awesome. It's good.
Yeah.
And then last week, you had the privilege and opportunity of going on a vacation.
It was not a vacation.
Definitely not a vacation. On a field trip with our son in his class. Where did you guys go?
We went to Cracker Country.
So what did you do there?
If you are not local to Tampa, Florida, you might be like, what
Is Cracker
Kind
Country?
of racist place did you just go
Oh,
to?
yeah, yeah.
No, Cracker Country is a classic. So I went there for field trips in elementary school.
Same.
Did you also went?
Once.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I public school, so we sparingly had to do
Yeah. It's
field
just a
trips.
classic. Like every child who grows up in this area goes to Cracker Country.
Yeah.
And it's on our fairgrounds and it's back in the I think like 1800s. That would make sense because that's when our country
Some
existed.
other century.
I think it's the 1800s. They like transport you back in time. The little guides even say, now that you've crossed the bridge, we have gone back in time to 1842 or something like that.
Like our 9-year-olds can put that in their mind and imagine that.
No, Matt, I really think that they felt like they were into it.
Interesting.
This is one of those field trips where the parents kind of stand around like, oh, okay, this is kind of cute, but the kids are all in on this.
So what kind of stuff did you do there?
So they learn how to live life like as a pioneer in Tampa, Florida. So the guides they kind of go around to all the stations. All of the buildings are original from that time period, like saved from old Florida history.
Love.
They learn how to be what are the people that work with metal?
Blacksmiths?
A blacksmith. Yes, yes. Oh man.
Metal workers.
Metal workers. They learn how to be a blacksmith. Like they tell stories like, okay, you just came here with absolutely nothing. No Home Depots, no Walmarts.
Figure it out, baby.
Yeah, you have to
Stone
build.
Ages.
Yeah, you have to
But a little
build
bit later.
everything. They learn how to make butter from scratch.
The butter churn.
Yeah, which our child would not eat the butter.
It's weird. I mean, if I watched butter made right in front of me, I probably wouldn't eat it either.
Yeah, but this is the kid that goes into our refrigerator on every occasion and dumps butter on
But that's
all of
already
his meals.
processed in a tub. It's
It's
so much easier that way. So I'm glad you got to have that experience with him. That's super
It was
fun.
really fun. I got at the or the souvenirs
marketplace.
shop there.
Yeah, that's how they get you, man. That's how they stay in business.
But
Like $80 for candy.
that cherry butter
Oh, it's really good.
is real
It's really
good.
good. Well, I'm glad you got to have that experience with him, and I'm glad I got a lot of pictures since I was here
Yeah, it was cute.
from you guys, and it seemed like you guys had a ton of fun. So
Yeah.
it was a good little bonding moment
Yeah,
there
it
between
was-
you and him.
It was cute.
Love that. Love that. Well, on today's episode, kind of shifting gears here, we want to talk about how to have tough conversations with your kids. And I'm not talking about tough conversations about situations and things that are caused by their own actions. I think every parent experiences that, and how to just, introduce our kids to different things that they're going to experience in life, or things that might get them down to the dumps in life, or things that they have to work themselves out of in life. But I want to take this from a foster care and adoptive perspective, and I want to talk about tough conversations that you will inevitably, and that's the key word there, because they will happen, inevitably have with your foster and adoptive kids about their biological families and situations that come away, out of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're going to share some stories. We're going to talk a little bit about just our general approach to those conversations, because I think we have a unique way of handling those conversations. And we've been pretty straightforward on what we expect and what we want to be the outcome of those situations. But you're always battling with the tension, I think, of how much do I share?
Right.
What's okay to tell my kid? How old are they? Are they going to be able to understand,
Right.
not accept at the moment, but understand what's happening in the moment,
Right.
and then how to massage that into their life, but also let them know that there's safety and security and love in their new situation.
Right. Well, and we are part of a Facebook group for foster parents
Yes.
in our licensing agency. And I would say a majority of the discussion questions, like
Yeah.
parents that are like in search of advice for,
Right.
it almost always has to do with how do I talk to my child about their biological family? How much do I let them, like, how do I help them navigate through this season of life now that this has happened?
Right.
Because it's a conversation that is solely unique to foster and adoptive families.
Yes.
You are not having these types of conversations with biological children for obvious reasons. And it's also a conversation that is so difficult to have for both children and adoptive parents.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any I take that back. there are great resources
Yeah.
on this,
Yeah.
but it's all very new.
Right.
Like our culture, the adoption and foster care culture has shifted greatly in recent years because adoption used to be very secretive and shameful. And do you know what I'm trying to say with that? It's like it used to be a giant secret if a child was adopted. Like, don't talk about biological families. Don't tell the
Sure.
child that they're
Sure. You keep
adopted.
you keep things hidden.
Yeah, like you just pretend like this child didn't experience all the things that they
Right.
experienced,
Right.
and research started coming out saying that's actually terrible for
Right.
a
Well,
child.
even like TV shows, I think of like funny TV shows back in the day and sitcoms and stuff like that where it came out later in the kid's life when they're
Yeah,
18, 20 years old that they were
yeah,
adopted. It's
yeah. It's
like
like, oh, surprise, you're adopted.
exactly. And it's
Hello.
like that's crazy to think
Yeah,
about now,
yeah,
right? Especially just access to everything our kids have, right?
right.
And so we've taken an approach where we've wanted to just be truthful and honest and upfront to an extent. But before we get into kind of our process and our stories behind that and things that we've experienced in our life, do you think that it is proper for foster and adoptive families, if you're thinking about fostering or thinking about adoption, to prepare yourself to have those conversations?
Of course.
I mean,
Of
it's an
course it
obvious thing,
is.
but how do
Yeah.
you even prepare
How
yourself
do you?
for that
Yes.
conversation?
Yeah.
So that was like I was kind of teeing you
Yeah.
up to get to
Yeah.
the second part. Of you,
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
following, you're
Yeah.
following, because there's no flow chart of like if they ask this question, move to section B.
Right.
It's like there's no written prescription
Mm-hmm.
and diagram of how to have those conversations properly. So you're again, you might get the question in the most random scenario and
Mm-hmm.
conversation of your life where you're just sitting there eating
Mm-hmm.
dinner as a family or eating around the dinner table and somebody pops up with the question like, hey, can you tell me about my biological mom and why I'm living in your house now
Yeah.
and why this is so weird for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you prepare for those conversations?
Well, we have a situation that is not every situation because our kids came to us much older.
Yeah.
The youngest child we had come to us was our son, and he was 6.
Yes.
So our children were well aware that they had other birth family, or they had a birth family.
Yeah.
That there was
They had connection and
a
relationship.
different life before they came to us. Yeah. So they were very well aware. It might have been a very different situation if we had a infant or a young child
Yeah.
that was trying to figure that out as they got older. So there was no option for us to pretend like their previous life didn't exist.
Right.
At all.
And all of the events of their previous life that they had
Yes.
witnessed.
Yes.
They might not have known what they were witnessing in the moment, but as they have gotten older and developed in our house and understood the world a little bit more, are more keen on like, oh my gosh, I actually saw that happen in my home. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for us, it gave us this permission to be very open and honest with our kids because there was no way we could hide reality from
Yeah.
them. And that was something, if we want to just start describing the beginning of our foster care cases prior to the adoptions that we went through, something that I always told all 3 of our kids throughout their foster cases was, I will always be open and honest with you
Yep.
about what's going on in this process.
Yes. About the process.
About the process.
Yes.
You can ask me any question you have, and I will give you the best, most honest answer that I can.
The truth.
Yes, I'm giving you the truth every time. And a lot of times that truth was hard. Like a lot of times that truth was, yeah, there was no decision when we went to court today, and
We're still living in limbo.
now we're still in limbo. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that also put us in the limbo too. Like,
Right.
hey, I'm also living in this limbo with
Yeah.
you.
We're experiencing it together.
Yeah, like there's not some answer that I have that I'm withholding from you.
Right.
But then also as the cases got more difficult and the end of the cases started drawing near and adoption was on the table and we knew that that's what was coming.
Yeah.
Like those are the conversations we also had to have. Now, those were 2 very different conversations.
Very much so. We'll get to that in a
Yeah,
second
yeah,
because
yeah.
we're going to share kind of the difference between those conversations and how
Yeah.
we approached it.
Yeah.
But in the preparation process for any foster and adoptive family, like you got to know these questions are going to arise. Even if you take in an infant,
Yeah.
at some point in their life, they may look at you and be like, so
What
What's the
happened?
story?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did I end up in your care?
Yeah.
How am I your child now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think knowing that one day you're going to have that conversation, I wouldn't say be fearful of it.
Not at all.
um,
Mm-mm.
but our tactic has always been truth to an extent, I would
Mm-hmm.
say,
Yeah, of course.
because there are some things that we've withheld in the particular details of
Mm-hmm.
the story in the past of our children, to protect them,
Yeah,
and to
yeah.
not and to shield them, and to not give them a relive that
Yeah,
trauma
like
that they've walked through.
re-traumatize them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the more open they were with us,
Mm-hmm.
the more open we became with them. And I
Yeah.
think that was a respect gainer in our relationship,
Yeah.
and a trust factor in our relationship as well.
Yeah.
That we're not going to withhold information from you because we know that you value this,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to tell you, the things that we're experiencing together, but also measuring the amount of stuff that we share as well.
Right, right. Yeah, it takes a definite amount of discernment and wisdom as you're
100%.
talking to your child,
100%.
having to know their emotional
Hmm.
ability and capacity there, and all of our kids are different.
Yes,
Like there are
very
some
much so.
things that I'm able to share with one of our children that I would not be able to share with the other, and
Right.
because I know that she's in a better emotional place than maybe
Right.
another, and
Right.
so there's always that discernment that you have to have as a parent. um but overall, I would say I have never, or I should say, I have wanted our children to know I'm not scared of these conversations.
Mm,
I'm not scared of these
it's big.
questions.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of the emotions that you feel
Hmm.
when you think about these things or ask these questions.
It's not
Like,
too heavy for me.
it's not too heavy for me to
Yeah.
take, and I'm not mad at you about it. Like, one of our daughters has opened up to us a lot about how much she misses her
Yes.
biological family.
Yeah.
And I have just looked at her and said, I'm not scared that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not mad that you feel that way. I would expect you to feel that way.
Right.
Of course you miss your mom.
Hmm.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And so just to have that level of acceptance and understanding when your children start talking about these things
Right.
and verbalizing these things,
And we're also not hurt by what you're saying either.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
you cannot,
Personal.
you cannot take that personally and equate that to like some offense to
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
as a parent.
Yeah. So I mean, that goes with understanding your role in the child's life as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think understanding your role, preparing for the conversation, and knowing that you're going to have it one day. And I think also bringing the spiritual into it. My word, there were times where we sat on a court hearing, or
Mm-hmm.
something would happen, and we would withhold that information for a time so that we could prepare our hearts and our minds and ask the Spirit to lead us through that conversation when we have that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that whatever we were about to bring to the table and whatever we were about to talk about was going to be a tough conversation for our kids. And so we wanted to just have open hearts and open minds to just be what they needed in the moment,
Yeah.
and asking the Lord for us to be able to be that for them.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the conversations that we've had in our home, the tough conversations that our kids, the questions that they've asked us,
Mm-hmm.
or the information that we had to bring to the table to them and
Hmm.
tell them about a change in their life, in their future, basically. So
Yeah.
some really heavy, weighty
Mhm.
conversations and
Yeah.
things that we've talked to our kids about. Can
Yeah.
you remember any of
Oh
those
gosh.
conversations?
There's so many, and my brain is rapid firing right now because I want to be so, so respectful to
Yes.
their biological
Have to be.
families.
Yeah.
Because we can disagree with a lot of the decisions that they made in their
Yep.
lives.
Yes.
But I have said this, and I think I will always say this. They made one singular decision to honor the life of these children and bring them into this world.
100%.
And for that, I will always respect them.
Yep.
Um,
They also have value
of
to the
course.
Lord and
Yeah.
to us as well. And
Yes.
yeah, just to back up and backtrack before we head into this conversation, just the amount of respect that we have for them as well, of like, in the beginning of the process, tried our absolute hardest to include them into every single aspect of our kids' life.
As much as was appropriate.
Yes,
We
yes,
had boundaries.
of course. But there are some things that you have to shield and hide, and there are also other decisions that they made and lifestyles that they're living that precluded them from keeping these children in their
Right.
home.
Right.
And so that's a reality of the life that they're living as well.
Right.
And so so yes, we do understand that these are heavy topics and conversations, but we do pray that they would come to know the hope in Jesus Christ that we've found and be restored and be reconciled as well.
And be restored and reconciled to their children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of those conversations.
Yeah. Oh man, where do we even start? Like, what's the first specific one we talk about? I would say a big conversation for our children, because they were older. We kind of skipped over the who is my mom, who's my real mommy. We skipped over that. But I would say be prepared. That's a very common question if you have a young child. You adopt an infant or a very young child. They are going to ask the questions, who's my real mommy?
Yeah.
Like that's
that's
a basic.
Yeah.
So we skipped that whole phase.
Yeah. Lucky us, right?
Yeah. And then we started really diving into, I think the first conversations I remember that I had to kind of take a few steps back and make sure my words were measured was when we started talking about adoption. Because that is just a huge permanent change in a child's life.
It is a rearranging of the future.
Yes. And I don't think any child enters the foster care system anticipating never seeing their parents again.
Right. And on the flip side, we are sitting as foster parents not anticipating them never seing their parents again.
Right. Everything is pointing towards reunification. So that is what the conversations revolved around in our home. All of our language was very temporary phrase.
And we made that clear with our girls. They were old enough to understand the situation that they found themselves in. Right? So we could say stuff like, when you head back home, or for this time, and every prayers at the dinner table, thank you for the time that we have together. And so it was almost finite in our language leading up to that.
Yeah, everything, our language was always revolving around, this is a temporary situation. In the future, you'll be back home with mom and dad.
Right.
And that was across the board with all of our kids.
All of our kids.
So when that has been the mindset for years, these cases went on.
Yes.
For years, when that is the perspective and mindset, and then it changes overnight to adoption. And I think we've talked about this before. You literally show up to court one day and they just decide, okay, this case is heading towards adoption now.
Yeah.
And then you go back home and go, well, now we're moving towards adoption. Like, it's just such a quick flip that happens in a case. And those conversations, I don't think we ever shared that live with our kids. Like, oh, well, today your case switched to adoption.
Nope.
I don't think that was the case, because that's just because a case changes to adoption doesn't mean the child is going to be adopted.
Correct.
So we didn't change our language that quickly, but I think once we started really getting to the end and you really start seeing, okay, in the next couple months, this case is going to be closed and we are going to be adopting these kids. That's when we started having really difficult conversations. Those were really, really, really hard conversations to
and it's not just
have.
And it's not, I don't think the gravity and the weight of the situation can fully be accepted and experienced in one conversation. It was a series of conversations.
It was.
And we are still in the process of teaching our girls what forever looks like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an ongoing process. But that first conversation where you have to break the news that you're not going to be going back home is, I'm just I might cry just thinking about it again. The reactions that they all had was it was just such a mix of emotions for them.
Yeah.
Because then instantly a child should never, ugh, it almost makes me mad. A child should never have to be in this situation, because I know what was running through their minds was this immediate tension or tearing of like, well, I love you guys. I love my biological parents
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So how am I now supposed to like choose? Like they feel like they have to choose. And it's just such a mix of emotions of a deep, deep grief that they're losing
Yeah. Or
something.
the brokenness of a relationship of like with biofamily as well. Of like, why did this happen? How could you not have worked hard enough or done the right things in order to keep me?
Yeah. And
Right.
that's the flood of questions start. Do they not love me?
Yeah.
Am I not worth fighting for? Am I not, did
Which
they
is
not like me?
which is not the case.
Oh, it's not at all.
And so that's what we try to tell our kids in that same breath of like, it's not anything that they're doing because they don't love you.
Right.
It's just something that they can't get themselves out of right now.
Right. Like, did I do something wrong
Right.
to deserve this? Yeah. It's just, it immediately, that conversation of, hey, you are now going to be adopted, is a trickle effect of floodgates opening for so many questions in their
Yeah.
mind and so much struggle
Yeah.
and a deep, deep grief. I read a book a while back, 20 things adopted kids wish their adoptive parents knew. And it opened my eyes to so much. And the biggest theme in that book, it just continually comes back to the amount of grief that children hold when they lose their first love, like their first parent, their mom that was supposed to like be there for them for forever, you know? And so there's just so much grief in play in all of these conversations. So navigating grief through the practicalities of explaining the specifics of whatever question they're asking is just so complex.
Right. Right. And I mean, we had that conversation with our girls, the first initial conversation with the girls years ago.
Yeah.
And we are still working through
Yeah.
the implications of that conversation with them.
Yeah. And we probably always will.
Still, yep. And we're still answering questions, and we're still open books to that. And we're still trying to navigate what the future looks like with biofamily and things like that. Thankfully, they have some biological family members who have been rock solid in our relationship, and just the whole process, and loving them, and people that we built relationships with. Their aunt, who's just been amazing, and just so good with us and with them. And so thankfully we're still able to hold those connections a little bit. But the future, again, we just don't know what the future is going to bring about. I think for me, one of the toughest conversations that we had, if I could switch it to our son. So we adopted our girls, and in the process of adopting the girls, we opened our home to our now son, who's our foster son at the time. And like you said earlier with our girls, it's the same situation. Everything when a child goes into foster care system is all about reunification, getting that kid back with their biofamily. It's the healthiest situation that could be brought about in the future of the child. And man, that was trending so heavily towards reunification. And it was like we were prepared. We were talking about him going home to him.
I was like excited for it at one point.
Yeah,
I'm like,
we were pumped for him.
this kid's never going to argue with me again.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're so excited for the prospect of him going back home with his mom, who he loves and who loves him so much. And in one court hearing, that flipped 180 degrees, walking towards adoption now. The rights of his mom were terminated in an instant. Lainey calls me from the courthouse and is like, change of plans. This is insane. And it was never an option to not adopt him if it came down to it.
But it was one of those things where all of us, like literally all of us, were not in that mindset of thinking that it was for sure a possibility. It's always, listen, when you bring a child into your home for foster care, you always need to
Right.
have it in the far back of your mind that this child might not go
Could
home.
could happen.
So it's not that it was like a complete blindside,
No.
but
No.
we weren't thinking that at the forefronts of all five of our minds.
Right, right. And so the conversation that I want to talk about, the tough conversation that we had, not only with him about that, I remember that dinner so specifically.
Yep.
That was rough.
That was
The conversations that we had to have before then,
yes.
not with just us about what life was going to look like, inviting the son into our home. It was with our girls,
Yep.
who we were in the process of adopting. Adoption day hadn't happened yet, or had it happen?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were adopted. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, they were adopted.
They were
We were
adopted.
working towards it.
They
Whatever.
were adopted.
Timeline's a little
God.
hazy in
Yes,
my mind.
they had been
Everything runs together at this point in my life. But having the conversation, the tough conversation
Yes.
with our girls about what was going to happen with our son. And so we got to the point where we had dinner with our oldest daughter, just her and I and you.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and man, her response, because here there's a lot of implications, right?
Yeah.
We were just finalizing and solidifying us as a family of four.
Right.
We had our foster son.
Yeah.
And so there's no time for us to live as a family of four,
Right.
us two and the girls.
Right.
And to just be that family and to grow together and then welcome in somebody else.
Right.
It was like, it's happening
Yeah, it was
right
just
now.
rapid fire.
Right. And so we wanted to talk to them and prepare them and all that stuff. But our mission as a family has always been that we want to be a family who rescues or helps rescue kids who need it, right? And that's been the mission, and that's been the calling of our hearts and together and all that stuff. So we get to talk to our kids about fulfilling the mission that we believe that God's called our family to, which is great. But I remember having a conversation with our oldest daughter and talking with her about it, and her reaction blew me away. She was supportive. She was understanding. I think the words out of her mouth as she's crying is like, "How could he live anywhere else?"
Yeah, of course.
She was like, "Of course, like this
course
is
we're
obviously
going to
this
adopt
is
him."
what we're going to do." And I was so proud. I was so proud. Man, just walking through what she walked through, and then just getting it and understanding. Try not to cry thinking about it, but
Yeah.
I knew that the conversation with our middle child, our second daughter, would be a harder conversation.
She's a little feistier.
She feels things a little bit harder, right? And I wouldn't say less compassionate, just compassionate in a different
No,
way.
not at all. They're very different.
Yeah.
And just to speak to their characters a little
Yeah.
bit, the conversations were difficult between them for different reasons
100%.
because our oldest takes on the responsibility of the world onto herself.
Yes, she does.
So we knew that conversation could lend itself to like, here is another child that you have to reach out to and take care of. So we wanted her to know, no, we are not expecting you to take on this child's trauma and help him heal.
Yeah, you get to be a kid.
You just get to be a kid and a sibling. Like, we're not asking you to be mom 2.0.
Yep.
And so that was that difficult conversation because her instinct is, okay, that's
Mama bear.
Yes,
Yeah.
mama bear. Let me take care of him. Let me take care of him.
Yeah.
So we needed to separate her from that. Our youngest, on the other hand, she is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
More kids?
More kids, less attention from me kind of
Right,
thing.
right.
And, that's a natural feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a natural feeling.
I think that's like a middle child thing, right?
Bro, I'm a middle child, and I remember when my younger brother was born,
Right.
and I was angry.
Yeah.
I was like, I hated him for a while.
She's like classic middle child.
But now we're best friends.
Yeah.
Love you, Dan. But I just remember having that conversation. So what we did with our middle daughter is we took her out to a nice
Took her out to a steak dinner.
Brazilian steakhouse
because
for
she loves
dinner.
steak.
Yep. She
We were
does.
like, let's butter this girl
And I
up.
love that about her. I love that she loves steak. It's so funny. But we took her out. We had that conversation, and it was tough. It was a tough conversation, and there were so many questions. And she, I think, had been wrestling with the longest time what's going to happen with our foster son.
Yeah, I remember her looking at us at that dinner. There was some anger, I think, initially in that conversation. And she looked at us, and because we had told her, we need to be praying for him and the situation because it's going to be very difficult for him personally. And she looked at us and said, I have been praying for him since the day he came into our home.
Yeah.
And that was
Blew me away.
so
Blew me
humbling.
away.
Yes.
Blew me away.
Very humbling.
Because I would not have expected that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, that's probably just me drawing conclusions about my kids and I don't know. I should have been more in that, but that blew me away when she said that.
Mm-hmm.
Blew me away. So we had that conversation, and then we knew, talking to our girls, that we were going to have a conversation with our son
Mm-hmm.
about what that was going to look like for him.
Yeah. So how do you tell a child to navigate switching their world and flipping their world upside down?
The toughest conversation. And I don't think, again, there's no blueprint for it.
No.
We were at dinner, and I feel like we knew that we some time had passed, and we had conversations knowing that we had to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
We were just looking for the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you, there is a right time, but the right time is just anytime.
You're right. Right.
When you need to say it.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't tell him after he just experienced the greatest accomplishment of his life.
Right.
But we were just sitting at dinner, and I think you and I like looked at each other, and we just knew,
Mm-hmm.
like, telepathically communicated, Lanes, we got to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is something we got to do. And so we began to speak to him. We began to tell him the truth about what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
We communicated that very clearly with him about what is happening in his life
Mm-hmm.
and what's going on. Now, we didn't talk about any of the reasons why.
Nope.
We just said, this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, just praying that he doesn't think that we're trying to steal him away from his biological family.
Right.
Or that there's anything that we've done that was conniving or cheating the system or whatever. I just didn't want him to think that, like, we were trying to insert ourselves into his life because we liked him more or loved him more, or liked having him around more, or that we were better people or whatever than anything else that he was experiencing. And but I don't know how you communicate that with a 7-year-old boy.
And my perspective was coming from like the other side of the spectrum, where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want him to think that his mom doesn't love him. I don't want him to think that he's done anything wrong to deserve this.
Exactly.
I don't want him to think that he's like the worst kid in the world and she didn't want him anymore. So it's like all of those things in that conversation. You're not just saying, hey, factually, you're going to be adopted now. There are facts that you need to present,
right.
But there's also this deeper layer of complexity that you are navigating. Like, I want you to know that your mom loves you so much. Like, you are loved.
Yeah.
And I also want you to know that we love you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just so much love and support through this very difficult time that you are going through.
Yeah.
So just figuring out how to communicate that and just keeping those messages going through these hard conversations. I think the most difficult thing for foster or adoptive parents is to make sure that they are not disparaging a child's birth parents.
Oversharing too, yeah.
And oversharing what's going on, right? Because you can disagree with what someone is doing, but you cannot disparage a relationship. Like, that is a true bond that child and their parent has.
It should not be your mission to break that bond.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
It should not be your mission to break that bond, no matter what biofamily is doing.
Yeah, we talk to our kids a lot about how cool it is that they have so many different parents and so that love them.
Yeah.
I was like, a lot of your friends, they didn't really, their parents just like had to have them. Like, that's just
an obligation.
It is an obligation. It's just like God chose this and boom, 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 they had to do it. And I was like, y'all have birth parents that just happened because that's how God made it happen. And you have parents that chose you.
Right.
Like, how cool. It's like a double layer of blessing. Now, it doesn't take away the hurt. It doesn't take away the grief.
Nope.
It doesn't invalidate the depth of hurt and brokenness that exists in adoption. But that is such a blessing in adoption.
Yeah.
Is look at the people that chose you, the people who still love you, and the people who chose you.
Yeah.
And it's such a perfect picture.
Yeah. And also, just being quite frank, think of all the gifts you're going to get at birthdays and Christmas. Come on, son. Am I right?
You've got birth families that are going to give you gifts.
Let's go back to the story. So we share it with our son, everything that's going on. His immediate reaction was the reaction I thought that we would get from him. He starts crying.
Yeah.
He gets up from the dinner table. He goes to his bedroom, closes the door behind him. One of the most beautiful things after that happens. I'm just content with
Yeah.
letting him just live
Just feel
and
it.
breathe and everything like that. Our girls got up from the dinner table and they went to his bedroom and they put their arms around him and they talked with him.
Yeah, they just sat there with him in it.
I don't even know what happened in that room.
No, we weren't
I'm
there.
just sitting at the dinner table in disbelief of like how did our girls respond like this? Praise God. Like this is the greatest thing that could have happened. And they're just sitting there in a shared experience, having conversation with him about what life is going to look like now.
Yeah.
And how they experience the same exact thing, and about how there's still joy, and about how they're still loved, and all the things that go into it.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Those good times.
I gotta be reminded of that. Maybe that's a story that we just tell ourselves for a while. But man, those tough conversations are going to happen. Preparing yourself for that doesn't look like reading. I mean, you can read books and you can figure out how to massage and enter information and things in a non aggressive way towards biofamilies and things like that. But preparation, I mean, praying for the time and the moment that conversation is going to have, understanding that situation is going to arise and you're going to have that conversation is key. And not oversharing and not breaking the bond between your kids and their biofamily is a very, very important thing to do. Very important thing to do.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm sure that we're going to experience a lot more of these conversations. And since the days that we told our kids heavy information, they've had questions and we've shared more as life goes on and they get older and they can understand more and accept more. We've been more open and honest about the situation, the things that we've seen and experienced and things like that. But I think it's been good. Just our thought process in it of openly sharing the truth, but also guarding the details.
Yes.
Is such a key thing.
Yes. I think we've seen very positive outcomes. We have seen healing.
Yes.
We have seen their idea, because it's really not much of a relationship anymore with their birth parents, but their perspective of or their view on their birth parents is still generally positive.
Very positive, yeah.
I know that, especially for our girls, I've heard them say before, we pray for our parents. And so it's like that they have a desire for good things for their birth parents. I don't think that there's this like hostility there.
Yeah.
And we've also seen a better bond with us
100%.
in knowing that we do our darndest to make a safe space for them to ask hard questions.
Yes.
And we will process through it with them, and we will be honest with them.
Yeah.
And we will be respectful of their lives and their stories, because adoption is their story.
Yes.
It's their life. And to deny that to a child just brings so much shame to them that it's just, I just encourage so much to have open and honest conversations. But
when the time is right.
But like you said, to guard the details that just aren't necessary to the narrative, while still being open and honest with a child, because it's their life and their story to know.
Yeah, fully agree. Fully agree. Man, that's a great conversation. Can't wait for more of those conversations with our kids. It's going to be so great. Well, thank you for listening today. This has been Matt
and Lainey
with the Unprofessional Parenting Podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.